Good morning, everyone. Happy Sunday. You guys are tuned in to Voces Unidas on KROJ 101.5 FM. We are produced by Valley Views SFE Media and Voces Unidas in Pacoima. And today, your hosts are Diosi.
Theodora. And Maria.
Yay. And we're going to go ahead and kick off with our land acknowledgement.
Today we recognize and honor the original occupants and stewards of the land on which now gather. Many of us join this gathering from lands that are the traditional home territory of the Fernandino Tatavian Band of Mission Indians. Voces Unidas recognizes and thanks the first people of this ancestral and unceded territory of the Fernandino Tatavian Band of Mission Indians, which is now occupied by the city of Los Angeles and residents like ourselves. It is important to honor their elders, past and present, and descendants who are citizens of the Fernandino Tatavian Band of Mission Indians. We recognize that the tribe is still here, and we are committed to uplifting their stories, their culture, and their community. Today, we also honor that is a part. The second part is a part of the labor acknowledgement, but today we are doing the land acknowledgement that was derived directly from the Fernandino Tatavian Band of Mission Indians website. If you are looking forward to doing land acknowledgements, please feel free to check out their website. They have more information on how to be intentional of uplifting their community that continues to be here and thrive in the San Fernando Valley. And with that, I'll push it over to DOC.
Yes. Hi, guys. So thank you so much, Deldara, for doing our land acknowledgement. So first Sunday of the year, guys, for us here with Voces Unidas, we are doing things a little bit differently this year with our Sunday shows. And usually you guys would be hearing the voices of myself and Melissa and Theodora. But we decided that as a team, it would be a lot nicer to have like a little bit of a team check-in on Sundays. And so on Sundays, when we are on air every third Sunday of the month, you're going to be hearing from different voices from the Voces Unidas team. And we really just want to bring all of our perspectives on to this platform. And we have our producer and directors outside who, they don't really get the opportunity to come on here. And we have so many wonderful conversations with them off air or even during the radio segments when we're on breaks. And so we just would love to be able to bring them on. And so moving forward, Sundays will be the first segment will be a catch up with our team. And so we hope that you guys enjoy a little bit of those conversations. Like we said, today we're in the studio with Teodora and my comadre Maria. And outside we're joined by Daniel Molina and Mike. And we have if you guys keep up with us on Instagram, you guys would have seen that we posted that we have a new segment, coming on in our second hour, which is a Plactica with a good friend of ours, a friend of mine, a new friend of mine, actually. And we met in community, and, it's been such a nice journey getting to know this person. And we barely know each other, actually. So it's going to be really nice to have these conversations and to get to know each other on air with you guys, right? And so I'm talking about Zacarias, an organizer. If you guys are familiarized with him, he works with the Achuchas. And so really excited to bring him on in the second hour. But right now, we just really want to talk about, these last couple of weeks that we've experienced, 2025. So many shifts, so much has happened. We didn't expect in our personal lives and in like the world and our community. And, Comadre Maria and I, we were hanging out at Bodevi a couple of days ago. And Comadre, we were talking on air a couple of weeks ago about your family coming. And, now your family's here. And like, we kind of had a little bit of that conversation. But, there's so much that has transpired around immigration. And I really wanted to pick your brain on like, how do you feel right now? Like, you have like family that just got here. You know, there's so many shifts going on. Like, how is that affecting you? Is it affecting you in any way? Like, you know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm very happy and very grateful that they're here because I spent the majority of my life without extended family. These same experiences that a lot of folks have in, in stages or parts in their lives, or at least they've had like a tia or a grandma, um, and they have, certain traditions and memories. I don't have any of that. So
Yeah.
I'm very happy and grateful and thankful that they are here. But at the same time, I'm also scared for them
Mm,
because even though they're here legally, they went through the process. It's been a 20-year process for them to get here.
yeah.
And this is something that I was talking to my aunt about, and she said, yes, it's scary, but we're here legally. And I said, yes, but if if there's ever a situation, we know that immigration, customs enforcement, ICE is not always willing to sit and talk to you. They're gonna ask questions later. So that's where I get a little bit afraid for not only my family but also the people that don't have that. Maybe, yes, maybe they get swept up in some way, but they do have the paperwork and they're able to verify it. My family would probably be okay, but there's a lot of different folks that don't have that luxury. They don't have that access to have been able to go through the process. And not that their experience is any less. Like, I feel like their experiences are more valuable because as people we have been migrating to different parts of the world for centuries. I mean, I feel like as long as we human beings have been around, we've moved around. So it's natural for us to move around. What is not natural is the man-made borders, the rules, and the people that decide over the lives of others. So that's where I get a little afraid for them, that they
Mm,
might be traumatized in some kind of way, or also like them experiencing maybe their first experiences of, you know, people that don't like immigrants or people that don't like Latinos, even though like we're pretty, I think, I guess, lucky in a way that my family can be considered a little white passing, but that doesn't it doesn't mean that that's never going to touch them because they don't know the language. They don't
yeah.
know the customs. So they can still be targeted and spotted. So I do get a little bit afraid, but I think just talking about these things with community and finding people that sort of feel the same way like I do, like we're afraid for our people and we need to protect them. I think that's where I find comfort because
Yeah.
then there might be an opportunity where I can connect my family to organizations that I've come across because of these connections and these conversations that we're having. So yeah, it's really complex. It's very bittersweet. It's bitter because I there's a fear, but it's very sweet because they're here, and I'm finally getting to spend time with them
Yeah.
and have a relationship with them because now I'm an adult and we can lean on each other. So I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing that. I think I share a lot of like similar feelings when it comes to immigration, when it comes to like having that understanding that they're, like you said, they're not going to really sit there and talk to you. And that's been the experience we've had as a community. And like there's been a lot of like conversation online about immigration and ICE being spotted in the community and what they're doing here, the relief that they're providing to other departments. And I know that Teodora, we joined a webinar. I joined a webinar, and I know you joined a different webinar as well, talking about immigration. And I wanted to know if there's a little bit about that you can share with us, and just kind of like that has to do with the conversation.
Yeah. I was able to join Unión del Barrio Community Self Defense Stop the ICE Raids webinar yesterday morning. I myself have also been sitting in a lot of concern, a lot of action driven thoughts of like, okay, how can I make sure that our community feels safe? How can I make sure that my family feels safe, my friends and their families, and um, there's a lot of organizing that's going on around Los Angeles, including our elected officials as well, who have been preparing themselves for the new administration coming in. And as being in Los Angeles, we do have a high undocumented community in our areas throughout the whole valley. But the specific one that I attended was a little bit different, and they were informing community about how to identify like different immigration enforcement departments that are here in the United States, so that they are, if they're a resident, if or a U.S. citizen, or if they're just an undocumented resident here in their community, that they're able to identify and not sit in fear, but instead be informed and know how to take action to make sure that the folks around them are able to feel safe. Which means to them, as well as just knowing the departments that are there, which is the Customs, Border Patrol, the Immigration, Customs Enforcement, and I believe there was one more department, the Citizenship and Immigration Services Department, which these are all federal departments that have different roles in enforcing immigration policies that are placed in the United States. And in here, in this webinar, we were also really just shown images of the different vehicles they use, the different uniforms they have, the undercover vehicles they may use, which I was actually really surprised to learn that they not surprised that they're American, obviously, but the ones that they use the most are Ford, GMC, and Dodge vehicles. They're more bulkier vehicles. They're not your sedans. They're bulkier vehicles, SUV type. Some of them to name were the Ford Explorer, Dodge Durango, Dodge Caravan, Dodge Charger, Chevy Impala, Chevy Silverado, Chevy Tahoe, and Ford Edge. And these are vehicles that they showed us to help identify. And another thing that I felt very informative was the way that they helped community understand, like, okay, you see this, but make sure that you also know the cars in your community, like what looks unusual in your community. Like, start preparing yourself visually of who is your neighbor. Make a community network of knowing who needs support in your neighborhood. So if there is a sighting, you automatically have that system of, okay, here's a notice of identification of this vehicle that looks unusual, has the different like departments on their
Like the logos and stuff.
The logos, yeah, exactly. And the other webinar that I attended was also an immigration webinar, more anchored towards community organizations versus community members.
Yeah.
And I think
That's the one I attended. And it was with State Senator Caroline Menjivar and with Assemblywoman Celeste Rodriguez.
Yeah.
So you want to share a little bit about that one?
Yeah, I could definitely share a little bit about that webinar as well. That webinar was hosted with Chirla, as well as Public Counsel, who are very reputable organizations in Los Angeles, learned, and also in the nation, just known to support community organizations, community members on the immigration process, and active response. And this webinar, I know DOC attended, as well, was just to help inform organizations on how to know their rights, how to tell community members, and like answering direct questions on concerns about immigration. So it was also kind of like almost like a town hall feel. People were able to ask questions directly to these organizations, and it was all just very informative, and it's testament to how We're Los Angeles is and like beyond, because the one I attended yesterday was attended by multiple cities from the state of California, of how we're preparing ourselves again, because I remember when I was younger, immigration in the early 2000s was very harsh, and we didn't have the tools that we have now
Yeah.
to come together and protect ourselves, to really organize. So it looks a lot different, I think, in the now, from when I was younger, of how to feel protected and informed. So these webinars that are being hosted are just systems of protection, I believe, for our community to prepare and know how to respond. The immigration webinar also hosted by Assemblywoman Celeste Rodriguez and Senator Caroline Menjivar also just had that had the information of how to respond if you do see a vehicle, a presence, is take a photo, take a video, and share it to the proper channels so that they can send out community members and their force of volunteers to investigate and look and also take videos to further validate, because a lot of fears have been in the community of false raids as well. So it's just making sure that we're not causing fear, but creating collective action to inform ourselves.
Yeah, and I think part of that is just like going through it. I think for myself, I can't speak for others, but for myself, this is like, I think the first time as an adult that I'm like really aware of what my community is being targeted for, like where our needs are, you know, and especially like working with the food stand that I've been working with in the last couple months. It's been really interesting to see like how community is being affected on the day to day with like the prices going up and, you know, the fires, and, you know, we have so much community, so many members that worked in, you know, Pacific Palisades that lost work and are now out of work, and they're here in the community figuring out like what they're gonna do. But, you know, they don't know how they're gonna pay their rent, they don't know how they're gonna, you know, and hearing these conversations, and on top of that, the fear of being, you know, deported and having to face that struggle, it's been so heartbreaking. And so
And apparently, I mean, tomorrow is the day when we get a new president officially.
yeah.
And reports are that he's going to start massive raids as early as Tuesday, and they're going to be starting in Chicago, I believe. So there's an East Coast attorney I follow on Instagram, and she was talking about what to do, and people were asking her because she's an attorney in the East Coast, and they were like, she was just like, just don't talk to them, just don't answer any questions, ask for an attorney. You're not entitled to an attorney, but there are attorneys out there that will help you, you know, they're pro bono with work and that kind of stuff. But I mean, that's very scary, because I'm thinking like, what's going to happen come Tuesday to our community?
Yeah.
Are they going to feel safe enough to go to work? And then touching on what you just said, what about the workforce in the Palisades?
Yeah.
I think I saw an article, and we're going to talk a little bit about this tomorrow in our show, but that I think the Latino or undocumented workforce, I think it's Latino workforce, it's like 34% of the workforce in that area.
Yeah.
So like there's 34% of the workforce in that area that is completely out of work. There's
Yep.
there's no place to go take care of kids. There's no place to go mow a lawn. There's no place to go housekeep. So now, where do they go, and how do they seek other jobs when now the immigration raids are happening and there's the threat of deportation? Like, how do you pick up from your last job when you know you can't work there anymore?
Yeah.
And now you got to go find another work. But how do you do that when you're afraid of like stepping outside of your?
And when you feel just so like let down by your environment and your community and like just everything. I want to
Yeah.
remind everybody that you guys are tuned into KROJ 101.5 FM. This is Radio Olin, and you guys are listening to Voces Unidas. We are streaming from Pueblo y Salud in the city of San Fernando. And today, this morning, your hosts are Diosi.
Theodora.
And Maria.
And yeah, you go ahead, Teodora.
No, yeah, and I did want to share like I these are my most of what I'm sharing are also just my personal views and my experiences here in San Fernando Valley, and I think that a big part of the seeing the outcome of the Palisades fires have really rooted our community to find the necessities of the not having just one source of income. And I saw a lot of people post this on social media of finding ways to be an entrepreneur, because at times you are facing a job loss. And I feel like our communities have always known this is like you la chamba, like always have work
You have
available.
multiple gigs going at the same time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I think it shows a lot during these fires of the economic insecurity that consistently we have to face, and especially with the Santa Anita distributions that were occurring, I saw a lot of hate, or not hate, but a lot of conversations online about like, oh, these people are coming in and they're not impacted by the fires, or they're
saw
not.
that.
Yeah, and it's like how you can't profile someone based off how they look or their need, like their impact. This is a multifaceted impacted
It's multi-layered, yes.
crisis that occurred here in Los Angeles. Like multiple families lost their source of income.
Yes.
UCLA PPI also shared that, like you shared, Maria, that at least 35,000 jobs held by Latinos are at risk due to the ongoing fires. So it really does show the colors of how we learn as we go, and we continue to build community and systems of support without profiling people on their needs, but also properly servicing folks as well.
Yeah, because it's not just the folks that lost their homes that need to go to the distribution center to pick up new clothes and food. It is the people that lost their jobs, that no longer have a job. They have been impacted too. So they also have the right to go to a distribution center and look for food and look for clothing, because they're not going to have the money to go buy clothes for their kids to go to school anymore. They're not going to have money to go grocery shopping, so they are in need. And that's where I really have a lot of hope for our community, and it really shows how connected our community can be, right? Like, and we can come together. And to me, I would want to see the sustaining of that, like not just coming together during a time of crisis, but sustaining those folks that do come to crisis in their lives. But yeah, like to what you said, it's really important not to profile, because I did have that thought of like, whoa, how are they gonna, like, make sure that there's enough for anybody? Not necessarily like how are they gonna make sure that this person was affected, but like to me it was like, how are they gonna make sure that there's enough? And you can't really make sure that there's enough. And if there are people that are going there that are not supposed to be going, that's karma. You can't police everybody. Like there's a really trendy store that opened up their doors to like a clothing drive, and and I went in the comments, and there were so many people in there like concerned about, well, how are you gonna make sure that they were affected for real? Because like, how are you gonna stop people from coming in and just taking everything? I wish that we would use that energy in a different way.
Yeah.
Right. Like we live in such a consumerist society that there's there's more than enough everywhere. And we saw that with the Santa Anita distribution donations.
Yeah,
like
like
there's so much out there to give. There's no need to be greedy at this time.
Absolutely.
And I myself, I am in my professional field, I am a district representative for Senator Caroline Menjivar. But when I step into these community spaces, I myself, I have my personal views.
Right.
I am an individual, and when I come to speak as well in Voces Unidas and Pocoima, it's coming from like a personal disclaimer. Like this is
your experience.
my experience. Yeah. And through the week, it's very hard to separate in my mind the alley fires and the fears of immigration because of this upcoming administration that has been bringing forth ICE presence in communities. Like we saw in Pacoima that same day that we held there was a webinar for immigration support.
We actually saw live reporting to our local representatives
Yeah.
as because if you guys keep up with Valley Views on Instagram, you guys would have seen that they posted and we all collabed on a video where the founder of Valley Views, Hector, spotted ICE in Costco in Pacoima. And so there's a lot of, you can check it out if you guys want
The comments
to.
are
There's so many
wild.
comments on the post, but it ranges from so many different views in the community, right? And I think this is where we're really seeing like how people feel about it, it's so interesting. But again, seeing the presence in the community and learning how to properly, like Dolora said, identify these vehicles, what department they are from, and properly time stamping, taking the photos, having the proper local representatives or their reps to, because every local representative has representatives in your area that you should have access to as a constituent to, report on, ask questions and, be involved with them. And so, it's very important for us to keep those contacts, to know who to go for. And there are organizations here in the San Fernando Valley that provide that education. And so one of those would be Pacoima Beautiful, where they have a program called Community Inspectors, which is a program that myself and Maria took, and it's actually where we met. And in this program, I think you go through programming as a constituent, as a resident here in the community. And I think that you always, when you go through these types of programming, you take it with you, and then you expand that knowledge in your own way, because you're here with the lived experiences. But truly, like, these organizations are essential to empowering our community. And that's really like where, like Dolora said, those, as Voces Unidas, we are bringing our personal lived experiences, to the forefront, because that's our whole platform, is to uplift our voices, is to share the different perspectives, is to create like conversation and change narratives, and so that's not going to happen if we don't talk about it.
Yeah,
and there's no right or wrong way to approach these conversations, as we've learned. But as we have the conversations, we figure out how to continue having them and where those boundaries lie. And I think that's the important part, is like learning how to do that in a respectful way, where, because we see it online right now, even on our platform with Valley Views and Voces Unidas, and like all of the comments on there is such a different like perspective from all angles in the community.
And it's surprising that there are some comments from some people that I'm like, whoa, that's how you really feel. Interesting. It makes me just sort of think a little bit more about the subject, and how I want to protect my inner circle, because I feel like there's a lot of performative people out there that are like, yes, this issue. But then when it comes down to it, it's there's no action. Like, I don't ever see them in the community. And not that I'm everywhere in the community, but I've been around enough to be able to make some connections and some friends that are organizers that I keep in touch with.
Yeah, and I just wanted to shout out the organizers that we just had recently in our past show with Imigi Org and Zayurit, who came in and spoke, and as well as JP Murals and the staff of Imigi Org, who is another resource for community to be able to reach out to if they have any concerns. They themselves have volunteers who are ready to drive out and confirm certain checkpoints. Of course, luckily, just to make sure everyone knows, and it was very clear at this point in time, there has not been a immigration raid or checkpoint in the San Fernando Valley. We want to be very clear on that. It was just a sighting of immigration, border patrol in Costco and Pacoima, who they claimed were just getting pizzas for fire response to serve folks. But it's important to make sure folks know the fear, be informed, and know that they are an entity that is known to cause fear in our communities. But our roles is to stay informed and know how to react.
Yeah, and on that note, thank you so much for that information, Teodora. And again, if you guys want to learn more about these subjects that we're talking about, right now, Valley Views has been a great resource. They've been putting out a lot of information. So there you can find information there. Like we said, there's also organizations like Chirla and Amigorg, and there are community members who are actively putting out information like Sayurit. And so we will be sharing all of that on our social media platforms. So if you guys want to check in and keep up with us on social media, you guys can find us at Voces Unidas en Pacoima. You guys can also keep up with us at Valley Views SFE Media. And we are going to take a quick musical break. Quick shout out to Alex Infinity, who has made this playlist for us on Spotify, Las Comadres, locals only, where you guys can hear local artists from the San Fernando Valley all in one place. And if you are a musician, an artist here in the San Fernando Valley, please feel free to reach out to Alex Infinity. And again, you guys can connect with Alex Infinity through any of our platforms, but you can also find Alex Infinity on Spotify and on Instagram. With that being said, enjoy this playlist, and we'll be right back, y'all. Hey, everyone. I hope you guys were enjoying that music that we were playing. You guys can find that music on Spotify at Las Comadres, locals only, created by Alex Infinity. And we are back with Voces Unidas for our second segment of the day for our Sunday show. And it's a new segment that we have. It's a segment with a new friend of mine, Zacarias. And Zacarias Bernal was born and raised in the San Gabriel Valley and LA's East Side. He graduated from UC Santa Barbara in Chicana Studies in 2023, from where he began working at Tiachucha's Centro Cultural and Bookstore as a program assistant, or organizing cultural arts and ancestral knowledge workshops, and co-facilitates a music class in Chino State Prison. So Zacarias, I met Zacarias not through his community work with Tiachuchas, but I met Zacarias they're in ceremony. And so Zacarias and I have a very different connection than our organizing. But it was very lovely when I learned that he works here in the San Fernando Valley. And so, we've kind of kept tabs with one another since then. And Zacarias reached out a little while ago with some thoughts and, some ideas. And I was like, you know what? Like, it would be great to have your voice on our platform. And so without further ado, Zacarias, thank you so much for joining our team. Thank you so much for being a co-host with us here on Voces Unidas with the Radio Olin, KROJ. We're so grateful to have you on. And how are you doing today?
Hello, good morning. Thank you, Leosi, for the beautiful introduction, for the invitation. Grateful to be here. This is my first time speaking on live radio ever, so I'm a little nervous, a little anxious, but since meeting Leosi, we've had a lot of pretty deep and profound conversations related to ceremony and culture and organizing and beyond. And I first reached out with the intention of coming with a proposal to do some work with the radio, knowing that you have this platform to somehow engage youth in the San Fernando Valley to be a part of this initiative called the Poor People's Campaign. Things shifted, didn't really work out, and so we're here today now. And so just to go a little deeper into my background, my upbringing, my name is Zacarias Bernal, 24 years old. Grew up in the Greater East Side. My childhood, I would say I grew up a pretty privileged manner. Didn't really have to worry about food on the table, roof over my head, clothes on my back. The community I grew up in, the city of Montebello, looking back at it now, it's a very economically segregated community. Up on the hills, you have luxury homes that have just been built. You got the middle class, and there, the train tracks still mean something. Once you pass them, it's all industrial, warehouses, commercial, polluted. And looking back at it now, I wasn't conscious of these things growing up, but now understanding how police violence and gang violence really did play a major role in my upbringing, the paths I decided to take for myself in life and work and school, and the type of work or organizing activism that I consider myself to be a part of now. It's interesting that I first found it interesting that you invited me to share some of my experience as an organizer and activist, because I don't identify as those things. For the longest, I don't identify, and I still don't. And part of the reason why I don't, my philosophy is do work that matters and let the people that I build relationships with decide what I am to them, to the community that I'm serving, that I'm working for. And also being exposed to what people call career activism or career organizing, where it organizing, grassroots organizing, activism doesn't come from one's soul, doesn't come from one's heart, doesn't come from the true intention of struggle for another world, for building another community, but just another job, And once the paychecks stop coming, once the money stops coming in, then so does the work.
Yeah.
And so those are some of the reasons why I'm in this, I guess, conflicted position. But I'm honored and grateful and much respect that you see me in that light. And I'm very new to all this work. Right? I'm pretty young in the grand scheme of things, especially when it comes to community organizing, grassroots community organizing, and which I'll get into next. So, growing up, went to school in the city of Montebello, elementary, intermediate, high school. Then I attended UC Santa Barbara, entered in 2019. So right on the cusp of pre-pandemic and right through the thick of it. I was in university through the whole thing. And that is really where I gained consciousness. I became politicized, radicalized. One of my earliest memories that I have there, that I was also ignorant to when it first happened, but that I now consider one of the most powerful seeds that has bloomed to the work I do today, was my first day moving into my dorm at UC Santa Barbara. I was in an elevator, and it was just me and another freshman who had just moved in, and we got to chopping it up, getting to know each other, talking about where we're from, what we're coming here to study, what are we looking forward to. And then we got into talking about ethnicity and race and where do I come from, where does he come from. So, I gave him the whole breakdown. My mother's side comes from Torreon, Coahuila. My father's side comes from Ciudad Juarez, Chihuahua, norteños. And so when I let this person know that I come from Mexican ancestry, he lets me know that his ancestry is Spanish. He comes from Spain. He went to school in Spain and everything. And at that moment, I didn't realize the weight that what he said next carried. But when I let him, as soon as he heard Mexican, he laughed and he's like, "Oh, we colonized you guys." And the crazy thing is I laughed with him because I didn't know what that word meant.
Yeah.
Colonization, colonizing. I was ignorant to all that. I never learned about what this history of colonialism is in public education. And so, months pass, maybe even a year pass when I take my first Chicano studies class and I learn about this word colonialism. I immediately thought about that experience and the elevator, and I was like, wow. If something like that were to happen today, it would have been a whole different outcome, you know? So from there, it was very quick that the university shut down. Students were sent home. I ended up staying in Santa Barbara for school, for work. And, you know, it was 2020. We all know what went down in 2020, right? George Floyd uprisings, which was another pivotal moment in my politicization, radicalization. It was the first time that I was, in my lifetime, being exposed to such outright anti-police, anti-institution, anti-system, abolition thought practice, not only in the classes I was taking, but in mass media, right? In social media. It was the first time in my lifetime as a youth that these ideas were being shared on such a mass scale. But there was also a very a personal revelation that came through this nationwide uprising in response to the murder of George Floyd and other countless black people, right? I have this uncle that I never met. My family had always told me that he was killed in a motorcycle accident. But it took the murder of George Floyd for my family to come clean and be honest with me and say that he was actually incarcerated as a youth and murdered by the LAPD in the 80s. And I'd always seen this photo on the wall of the house, and I didn't know anything about him other than that he rode a motorcycle, and that's how he died. And so for my family to come clean this many years later to share this reality, I developed a sense of rage.
Yeah.
Like, why would you feel the need to hide this, you know? And then also dealing with this internal conflict, this family conflict of having family also working in state institutions of prisons and as police, and having this contradiction of, wow, how is it that our own family is a victim to this system, to the police, yet at the same time, some of the family continues to be perpetrators of the system. So we're living this contradiction of being victims and perpetrators of it. And so this was all coinciding with my politicization in the field of Chicano studies, and it was helping me to make sense of this contradiction, this colonial contradiction that we're living in. You know, I learned that Los Angeles is the LAPD in particular is what the first or second largest police department in the United States, but is the largest with the largest majority minority police force. So that means we have more black and brown people in uniform policing their own black and brown communities.
Yeah.
And this is it's a very disturbing reality if you really look at it with the lens and analysis of colonialism is what got us to this place, right? We are nowhere near a post-colonial society, a post-colonial civilization. We're right in the thick of it. I'll pause right there. I don't know. I don't know if Yossi, you have anything to say.
I mean, yeah. So for right off the bat, like when you were talking about, you know, your experiences like with racism and not being aware that that was what was going on, that you were experiencing racism. And, you know, my first experience with racism was as an adult, where I was conscious, but it awoke other experiences that I had gone through as a child, but I was ignorant. And also it was something that was normalized in my community and just in, I think, the Hispanic, Latino, Chicano communities is, you know, when you're white passing, you're treated differently. And, you know, I used to think like I didn't really like my skin tone growing up, you know, because my dad would call my little sister La Más Bonita, and she was like, she had brown skin and, beautiful curly brown hair, and like me and my sister Teodora, we were like, more white passing, and just like had different features that, it was very obvious why my little sister Irene was called La Más Bonita. It's because she represented the culture more, and to my dad that was very important. And so growing up with that, knowing that my sister was like La Más Bonita, it wasn't something that made me insecure like within my family, because I loved my little sister. But I think it did cause an insecurity, like when it came to growing up in the community as a white passing person, and having my peers be, color like morenitos, and like to me it was so beautiful, like their skin tone, and I wanted to look like them. And so I always felt like I didn't fit in, and so that was just something that like I internalized for a long time. And growing up, going to middle school, then high school, I steered away from, being from my culture, because I wasn't like aware of it. I wasn't, none of that. And so I became like a metalhead, a rocker girl, like where like most of the girls in my community were like, I grew up around a lot of cholas, And so like it's something that I've spoken on a lot. Like growing up, like I got beat up a lot. Like I fought a lot with like that. Like there was this like big contrast between like the rockers and the cholos, and like I never fit in with this group of people. And so growing up, it was like I felt very isolated in my community, and I was a magnet student, and so I found solace in my classes and my studies, and until I didn't have that anymore, because life took a toll on my family, and my education wasn't a priority all of a sudden. And so that shifted so much in my life, and work became the priority. And so as that happened, my sister, the La Más Bonita, was visiting me at work one day, and we went to go get coffee. And I happened to work at the time in Hollywood, and so tourist area, and my sister, somebody starts talking to her, and they're speaking to her in broken English, but they're you could tell they're American, but they were speaking to her with like a Mexican accent or something. And so they were basically like, hola, hello. Like they were speaking to her, like dumbing their voice down. And she looked at them and she was like, what the heck? And she didn't respond to them. And, then they turned to me and they're like, hey, like, how are you? And I kind of like, was like, oh, I'm okay, And then all of a sudden, like, he turns to my sister and he talks to her in Spanish, and like, he was like profiling her. And because we were in Hollywood, which is a tourist area, and he starts telling her like, where are you from? Like, where are you visiting from? She's like, this is my community. Like, I come here. I'm a regular here. Like, you don't have to talk to me like that. But like it wasn't an authentic interaction. And like it really bothered her. And then for me, it wasn't a interaction that I saw it, and I saw like it was like weird, but it didn't impact me. Like until we walked out and she was like really flustered, and she was just like, I hate this. I hate when that happens. It happens all the time. And I was like, what do you mean? And so like, like that experience to me was like, as an adult, my first experience where I realized that I have a very different experience from my sister. And this whole time growing up, like I thought like, ella es la más bonita, like this, like that. But like really, like she had been growing up facing racism this whole time. And it wasn't even a conversation we ever had with her until that moment of like me realizing like, oh, like my sister gets racially profiled often. And, So yeah, full circle moment. After I had that realization, I had a memory of my brother and I, who my brother's a year older, where he and I were like probably 4 and 5 years old at the store with our mom, and somebody gave me a candy, and my little brother wanted my older brother, he was a year older than me, wanted a candy too. And the guy was like telling my mom like, oh, your daughter's so cute, like está bien bonita, like, he was American. And then when my brother reached out and asked for a candy, he said, no, not you, you look like a monkey. And my mom ripped the candy out of my hand and threw it at the man. And that wasn't a memory I had at all, like until like I remembered that moment after wondering like where else have I experienced racism. And so yeah, it's that's kind of like from the beginning of like the conversation where you were talking about racism, where I was like, I myself grew up very much because I wasn't in touch with my culture. I didn't have like that awareness of like who I was. So there's no way for me to like even be aware when I was being marginalized, or it was just like I was just living this experience and like not really, like, again, not just like I was not aware at all of like what was happening and why it was happening. I just knew like this was life. And so like, again, like yourself, during 2020, I lived in Utah, and I had just moved there, and it was so different going through the George Floyd uprising, COVID, there in that community, because the community wasn't predominantly Hispanic or Black. It was white, and it's a red state. And so the conversations were different, and they stirred different emotions in me. Like, I had so much anger, so much frustration. And at the time, I was married to somebody who is very conservative and had very different political views than I did, and was very much like proud to be American. And even though they were they were an immigrant here too, they criticized, the situation with George Floyd. And I, in my own home, I was fighting against somebody who was basically saying like, well, why didn't they listen? Why this, why that? And I was having to question in my own home, like, what was going on there. And so 2020 was definitely like a year where I felt so disconnected from community, so disconnected from reality, and seeing the experiences that were happening in the world. COVID happening. My dad passed from COVID, as a lot of we've talked on air about before, and I causing my move back to here to Los Angeles. And so that's where, for me, my education, my awakening happened when I moved back to the community that I was trying to get away from because I hated it. And then all of a sudden I'm back here because I have to be here because my family's grieving and having a new perspective. I just want to remind everybody, you guys are tuned into Radio Olin, KROJ 101.5 FM. We're coming to you live from the studios here at Pueblo y Salud in the city of San Fernando. You guys are tuned in with Voces Unidas. We're on our second segment with Zacarias, Plactica with Zacarias and Yossi. And we're just wrapping up this first part of our segment, talking about like our upbringing and we were getting to know Zacarias, and I was just relating to kind of this timeline that Zacarias went through. And I'm older than Zacarias. I'm older than you, but like still, like I was saying, like there's a lot of my awakening happened very similar in the same time frame as yours, because just the current events in the world. And so like moving back to this community after living in Utah and experiencing like the George Floyd uprising and the COVID, and coming back here and seeing the resiliency of the community, seeing how people were coming together even to grieve, and all of a sudden having more empathy for what's going on, being a adult now, a mother, facing these challenges, I started to question like the systems around me, and why is it so hard for me? Like I've tried so hard, and like I've done so much, and I am successful, but like the circumstances around me don't reflect that. Why? Is it really that I haven't worked, I don't deserve like success, or I don't, or is it like circumstantial to like my environment that it's keeping me in a lower bracket than if I would have done all of this and had access to resources at a younger age, or just not been a part of this community? Then you start to question like the way other people grow up, the way that other people experience life. And that for me, that's where I came into learning about Chicanismo and the what it means to be Chicano, Chicana, and the fight that we have that unifies us. And it was in these classes that I met people like my comadre, and like we had a friend there we met as well, Ana Rosa, and her partner Ernesto, who are part of the what is it called? Their organization, the
La Raza Unida.
La Raza Unida. Not yeah. So, and then like through them, I met like Vanessa Bustamante, homegirl doctora, and like when I was with them and learning with them, they taught me a lot about like the struggle that we go through and all of that, and so it's just been like such a journey coming into community here, and like yeah, just I feel like my timeline just resonates a lot with yours, and I don't know. I don't really know what else to say, but maybe this is a good place to go on a little musical break, and we can gather our thoughts and come back. But you guys, I want to give a quick little shout out to our sponsors before we go on our break right now. Superior Carco, La Mariposa Mexican Food, and Prime One Design. Thank you guys so much for your continued support. We love you guys, and we'll be right back, y'all. Hey guys, we are back with Voces Unidas on our second segment of our Sunday show, and we're having a platica with Zacarias and Diosi. I'm Diosi, and I'm with Zacarias here. And right before we went on our break, we were talking about just like the similarities in our timelines and how the current events that were going on in like the world kind of impacted us. And you said something that also kind of also represents something to myself here from the city of San Fernando. Living in Pacoima is, you said the railroad still means something. The train tracks still mean something. The difference between one side of town and the other side of town. And I was wondering if you could speak a little bit, knowing that you're from the San Gabriel Valley and you're working here in this San Fernando Valley. So valley to valley, where are those similarities that you see when it comes to like redlining and the pollution and the industries that are in our communities?
That's a great question. Thank you, Diosi. And before we go on, I do just want to make a disclaimer. Anything I say on here on air, I am saying as an individual. I'm not representing anybody or speaking on behalf of anybody. And so all opinions shared on my own. And this is a great topic, the issue of train tracks and what they represent, right? Historically, south of the train tracks have always been the communities of color, minorities, impoverished communities, lower economic status. And we still see remnants of that today, right? In the San Gabriel Valley, the further north you go towards the mountains, the more upper class, wealthier communities that you live, even northeast of the San Gabriel Valley. The further southeast you go, you go into more industry, more polluted environments, more commercial zones, and people are living amongst warehouses. And it's similar here, right? I'm very new to the San Fernando Valley, but a lot of the what people call urban planning, or the cities, the communities, the valley's infrastructure is designed the same way, right? And a lot of it's exactly that. It's by design. And I want to speak on a class struggle, a land defense struggle, a environmental struggle that is very much related to what we're talking about right now, right? This issue of borders, of the privatization of land. In another pivotal moment in 2020 that I believe got me to where I am today, and that is of the San Marcos Foothills Preserve in the city of Santa Barbara. It's a sacred Chumash site that in 2020 was at risk of being developed for luxury homes, right? The northern part of the community. And I had heard about this struggle and gone out to check it out. Didn't know anything about it. My roommate just asked if I wanted to go see what's going on. And so I went, and this was the first time that I had seen a land defense struggle in real life, something not read about or watched or listened to on a podcast, people putting their bodies on the line, right? And what was so fascinating and new to me was this anarchist organization that was going on, right? It was people on the ground, people rejecting the help from government institutions, rejecting the help from nonprofit status, purely grassroots, purely mutual aid, people coming together of resources and putting their bodies on the line to defend the land, to prevent literal bulldozers, putting their bodies in front of bulldozers to enter this land. It was the first time that I had seen this in real life. But what was really pivotal for me too was this was also one of the first indigenous land struggles that I had experienced in my life, learning about the Chumash people, the original caretakers of that land, what the history of those preserves are. But what was fascinating about this experience too, that was also brand new to me, was this free education that was going on. People were sharing books, people were sharing zines, people were putting on workshops, classes. I learned a lot more there than I did in some of my classes that I'd taken at the university.
The university, yeah.
All by the people, right? And so through that experience, I got this sensation in that education was really going to be what our weapon, right? So I committed to a path of becoming a high school ethnic studies teacher so I can share about these kinds of struggles going on in the world. You know, that was my path up until the last day of graduation. I had this realization, submitted my last final. I was like, wow, is this really the path that I want to go on right now?
Wow.
Do I really want my life to be organized by an institutional school clock again? Do I really want to dive deeper into debt? Do I really want to have to, yes, teach ethnic studies, but not in our own way? It's still working with those from above. And so I trusted my gut, and my answer was no. I took a leap, and that same day I was doom scrolling, right, and I came across an opportunity to apply for an internship with the Achuchas, Centro Cultural and Bookstore, where I currently work today. And this felt like a full circle moment. I had learned about the Achuchas in one of my jobs on the university campus, working in the library's archives. We have a whole bunch of the Achuchas archives, Luis Rodriguez original papers there. I had first read Always Running when I was a freshman in high school. It was the first piece of Chicano literature that I had read. And so now this opportunity came about. I didn't know much of the Achuchas at the time, but I had heard a lot of great things about them from the Chicano Studies department there. So I took a leap, applied. Month later, I was kind of wandering while I was waiting, didn't know what I was doing myself, and it worked out. I went on as an intern where they kept me on. I've been there a little over a year and a half now as a program assistant. So what I do there today is I organize cultural arts classes and ancestral knowledge workshops for the Northeast San Fernando Valley community. And it's through there that I found ceremony, inipi, temezcal, men's talking circles, danza, It's through the temescal, right, as Diosi mentioned, that we cross paths. And what came next to working with the achuchas was following the drum of danza, right? I danced my first time in Ventura, that an ensayo that a friend had invited me to, but I didn't really take danza that serious until coming to work in the valley and dancing with Grupo Ajolote, and learning from Maestro Tata Freddy on the drum. And so I kept showing up to these drum circles. And over time, the Trauma to Transformation program at the Achuchas had asked me if I was interested in taking the drum into juvenile halls and sharing it with the youth. I was also diving deeper into danza at the time, so sharing danza mexica philosophy with youth inside. So I was doing that for a while, mostly as a substitute, but more consistently now I co-facilitate a culture of music class, ancestral rhythms, traditional instruments, in Chino State Prison, a men's institution. That is essentially, at its core, what we're doing there is we're facilitating a men's circle, right? Creating the space for men to be able to express themselves, to heal, to process, to return to these ancestral teachings, ancestral knowledge, all these ways that have been lost, have been forcefully forgotten from us. And that's where I'm at today. You know, that's how I try to organize my life, live my life, what I'm committed to. And since we're speaking of ceremony, we recently...
Yeah, well, let's actually bring in Daniel Molina. We're going to take a quick, just a quick little transitional break. Enjoy this playlist by Alex Infinity on Spotify, Las Comadres, locals only. And we'll be right back. Don't go anywhere, y'all. And we're back, y'all. You guys are tuned into Voces Unidas on KROJ 101.5 FM. We are in the studio here in San Fernando with, you guys are listening to my voice. It's Diosi. And we're with Zacarias, having a platica with Zacarias. And joining us for the last little part of our segment here is Daniel Molina. And we're going to actually talk about someone that means a lot to all of us. And Zacarias was about to talk about that. So go ahead, Zacarias. You could jump in where you left off.
Thank you, Diosi. Yeah, so this next segment, since we're, the topic is community and culture, we wanted to bring in the spirit of a very important medicine woman, community member, elder, to all of us, who is now an ancestor, named Nana Emma Rosa, who I had the honor and privilege to be healed and experience temescal with her, which is where I met Daniel and Diosi.
Yeah, so I met Nana actually at Mission College. She had just done alfombra for the Dia de los Muertos, one of their main halls. And La Raza Unida was participating in a mecha. They were having some type of event at the Mission College, and one of my friends was speaking, and so I went to support her and to just be there with her. And we were actually in a rush, and my phone was about to die, but I was for some reason called to come in to this part of the school. And when I walked in there, there was this beautiful alfombra, and it was a woman standing at the foot of it, kind of preparing some things and praying. And I was so intrigued, and I asked, what is this, and so she went on to explain what the alfombra represents. And she gave me a very in detail explanation. And my phone ended up dying, and we ended up having about an hour conversation. And through that first encounter, I actually have a 30-minute video of her talking about the alfombra. But that was the beginning of understanding who this person was and what she represented. Um, she invited me to come to her home. I shared with her that I had recently lost my father, and I was able to go to her home, and through community, we learned that her temescal was at risk of being taken away because of fire regulations. And so she was going to be visited by the fire chief. And so she put out a message to anybody that can come out to support, to come in and protect this sacred land and the ceremony. And so I asked some of my friends, I told them how important this was to me, and that even though like this is somebody like at the moment I had just kind of met, that I really wanted to support her. And so a few of my friends actually went with me, and one of those friends was Daniel. And so Daniel was there, and Daniel, if you guys know Daniel, he's siempre se está comidiendo, siempre like he's offering his help and his services up. And so we got there, and Nana was doing some things with Cheno and Masawali, and Daniel, like, you know, right off the bat, like he's like, how can I help and what can I do? And they started talking to him. And I don't want to speak on your experience, Daniel, but that's kind of where you come into the picture and when you met Nana.
I met Nana the second time we saw her at Mission College.
Oh shoot,
Yeah,
sorry.
So Diosi met her on a separate occasion, and then I met her at the Mecha. It was like an event for Mecha, and we had went. And when I met her, it was so weird. Like, first of all, like I think that maybe it's because I did film or I like movies, but like everything's so cinematic to me sometimes. And it was almost like if the universe was giving me like presenting me like an angel, a goddess of like healing and love. And when I met her, it was like they were like, she's from El Salvador. And it's like, you know, being Salvadorian, sometimes it was really hard to relate to the Latinos around me because most of them were Mexican. And, you know, I love all Latino cultures. You know, I get along with whoever has a good heart, you know. But she was the first person, other than my parents. And even my parents, I think it's sometimes hard for them to talk about where they came from. But Nana Emma is the first person that really opened up what it's like to be from there, from the jungles, from the indigenous people there, because I never learned about that part. And then when she started telling me, it was like so interesting to me. And just when she told me about her life and the sacrifices that she made and the things that she did, the foundational work that she did, you know, here in the valley, and for her people, always like, you know, advocating. And it was just like an honor to meet this person. So yeah, I met her at Mission College, supported her with the fire marshals to get that the permit approved for Temescal. And then the OC invited me to the Temescal that happened December 2023, and that was my first ceremony. I think our first ceremony, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like I was like supporting DOC. Like I supported DOC with everything she did. You know, she's a good friend, good heart. When we were friends, like now we're together, so it's different. But when we were friends, the support regardless never changed, right? So I always was like, okay, whatever you need, like everything like she needed. If she needed somebody to come up and hold a sign for something, I'd go. If she needed somebody to come help out with holding anything, I was like, yes, like I'm down because of how down you are for community. And when I showed up to Temescal, like it's, I mean, you all know, it's so sacred, and it just gave me what I was, I guess, missing my whole life, which was heartless, selfless people. Sorry, not heartless. Selfless people that were there for a common cause, which was to heal together and to keep traditions alive in a real way. And just to be able to experience that and several other Temescals where I met you, Zacarias, you know, and just to see the effect that she had on so many people, and good effect, you know, like healing effect, the effect that makes us believe in ourselves, the effect that makes us think that we are worthy, that we could forgive ourselves for the things that we thought we couldn't. And yeah, I'm super thankful to DOC for introducing me to this person, because I mean, I was pretty reserved about Nana, you know. Like I think we all were, you know. And just to be able to like know her was like, to me, a privilege, because I learned so much from her. And the service that I was able to provide for her ceremony, like chopping trees, chopping wood for the fire, staying up late, you know, being with community, was one of the most real things I ever did. And to have the opportunity to do that, and for her to invite me into her sacred place and let me do that, and let me offer myself up the way that I was able to, like, I'm forever in debt to her. And I'm sure she wouldn't feel that way, but she lives on forever with us, I believe. I'm sorry I kind of went on, but
No, Daniel, thank you.
Yeah, thank you both for sharing your experiences with Nana. As far as mine, I feel I didn't know Nana that long. I feel that I didn't know her that well. I'd only met her maybe less than 5 months ago, and only had 3 or 4 interactions for 2 ceremonies with her, and maybe 1 other Sunday Plactica up there on their land. And so, you know, hearing of her transition and processing that has been really difficult for me, and complicated, complex, confusing. I had lost 3 family relatives, blood relatives, in the last 6 months. So, you know, when I first gone to Nana's Temezcal, death was, I was so numb to it. It felt like all the men's circles I was going to, other Temezcales I was going to, all these ceremonies, danza, it felt like it wasn't working. I feel like I had lost faith in it, because it was just one family member after another in such a short amount of time. And so I feel that I carried this numbness with me, even going through those ceremonies, and I was still very new to, you know, you develop a relationship with not only the people that attend the Temezcal, but the Temezcal itself, the land.
Yeah.
And I feel like my relationship there, in every sense of it, was so green, was so fresh. It didn't feel deep. And so, you know, I feel that I didn't get the chance to really experience Nana in such a deeper, sacred way, as you both are sharing right now, as countless community members of the San Fernando Valley have and know her, right? But one thing that I do remember that I carry with me, that Nana kind of brought me back to, you know, letting go of the doubt in the power of these ceremonies, was during one of the platicas. It was late at night, and there was a bee that had landed on my pants, and it wouldn't leave. And as soon as she saw that, you know, I was expressing that I had just lost my tia to cancer, and processing that, trying to figure out what it means to grieve tomorrow when I feel like I haven't left those states because of the 2 previous family deaths just before. And she said, "That's your tia." You know, there was still doubt in me at the time, but fast forward a few weeks later, I checked in on my cousin, the son of my tia, my cousin, his fiance, and it dawned on me to ask, you know, did Tia Leti, did she like bees or something? Did she have this thing about bees, or like, I don't know, did she just like the insect bees? And immediately they were like, you know, actually she always made sure to have a honeycomb of honey around in the house. And so when they said that, I kind of, you know, got chills and goosebumps, and I was like, wow. The messages come in very subtle ways if you're willing to look at them like that and believe in them. So that's all I'd like to share right now.
Thank you.
But
And you know,
Can I share something?
Yeah, go
Sorry,
ahead.
I wanted to share something with you real quick. Like, you know, me personally, like Diosi had spoken a lot more with Nana, and I'm so happy that she did. You know, because Diosi really needed it. But like, I spent a lot of days at Nana's house, like, you know, chopping wood, doing work during the period that I spent the most time. You know, and because she was resting, absolutely, she was like, you know, restless, and but she shared that she was so grateful for you, like for sitting with her in the Temescal. Like, she expressed that to me and her several times, that like she was so grateful for you, and like I'm grateful for you because, you know, like there was times where I wasn't in the Temescal with her, and it's like just having people around her, especially people are like
Our
our
age,
age, you know, like still,
willing to put in the work for our ancestors,
and
for our elders, and
and to learn from
for
our
our
elders.
ancestors.
I just wanted to express that, but go ahead, Dizzy.
No, yeah, just I mean, I think everybody that knew Nana and that got to experience her love and her magic and her wisdom, like nobody's ever gonna forget her, and I think everybody will carry her teachings on. But you know, Nana impacted my family in a way that like it made me like a better mother, a better organizer, a better, like just a better person. And I found community that I found community in community that I never thought like would be my community. And I'm so grateful for those individuals because I now have elders. I have real elders, like real advice where it's not talking about like the corporate world or politics, or where it's real like spirituality and taking care of ourselves in the most just like learning how to take care of yourself and love yourself in the most like I don't even know how to say like, but yeah, like she taught me just like how to accept like the good and the bad in me, and how to live with the decisions in the past, that things that have happened, and how to move forward and how to look forward to the future without resentment. And like a lot of that is now like being passed down to my kids, and my kids had the opportunity to learn from her too, and my kids had the opportunity to go through Temescal with her this last year as well. And so seeing my kids kind of also grieve her, and you know, they are also very aware of like how important she was to our community, and the connection that they feel with her as well is just like it just like solidifies everything else to me. Like I like yourself, Zacarias, like I've questioned so many things, and you know, but like at the end of the day, like what I experienced with Nana in Temescal, in ceremony, in prayer, and just with the drums, with singing, it it's not something I have ever experienced like outside in the world. And so, yeah, like, you know, one of like the first conversations we ever had was after ceremony. And I was telling you earlier today, when we first met this morning, that like when you reached out initially, it was like without hesitation. I think you reached out to Daniel, or I don't know which one of us initially, but I remember having a conversation with Daniel about like without hesitation. It was like, yeah, like we need to bring these conversations to our platform, because it's something that we experience together and we talk about it together. But like we were friends for a long time, and then now we're up, like we are a couple, we are a partnership. But like how, like outside of us, like what other youth do we see, or what other young adult do we see pursuing, you know, this type of knowledge and this type of way of life? Because it is a way of life. And it's like we were talking about that too, the shifts that have taken place since meeting Nana, the priorities that have shifted for, I think, everyone. And it's completely changed the way that I look at organizing, and the way that I, you know, when I met Nana, like I was going through a lot of transitions where I was like leaving behind friends or just relationships that didn't serve me and that weren't in alignment with like my higher self. And so she really like helped me like navigate that, and like how to navigate that moving forward, you know, without like letting people come and go, letting people, like you said, show you what do you mean to them, because you know what you mean to yourself. We know who we are. We're centered, but what do we mean to everybody else outside of us? And how do we fill those roles without losing ourselves in the center that we have? And I think that's where like I hope to continue growing with you guys, and you know, with the people that we have come into ceremony with, and that we are like a bit of a village through Nana. I hope that we can continue to learn and to grow together, and learn, like teach others how to also live this way, and how to change our perspective of, you know, resentment. And because like resentment like really starts within yourself. You resent yourself, and then you resent others, and you know. And so yeah, again, thank you guys. I don't know, I honestly, guys, like it's been so hard for me to talk about Nana. Like it's really been, I've been trying to just stay strong, because I can only imagine like what other people are feeling that knew her longer, that experienced her longer, and her own family. Like we really like, I'm so grateful that I know like I can call her my ancestor, right? And I know I have access to her through prayer. And but yeah, like I don't really know how to segue from here.
Well, I think that maybe we should just I think it was all good words we had to say, you know, and kind of like talking together. So unless you all have like any last words, I think we should just wrap it up and enjoy our Sunday, because she probably would have been out in the garden today, so we should go enjoy the sunshine for her.
Yeah, I would just like to wrap my final palabras expressing gratitude. Thank you to the both of you for the invitation, for the rest of the Voces Unidas team, for putting this together and creating the platform of this segment of culture and community, because it is so important more than ever now. And yeah, it's I'll be closing out thinking of Nana and in these ways. So thank you.
Thank you.
And so with that, you guys, we have officially wrapped up our first Sunday segment of 2025 with our team, our lovely team with Voces Unidas, and with our new co-host, Zacarias Bernal. And it was a lovely conversation. Again, quick shout out to Alex Infinity, who also works at the Achuchas Cultural Center, volunteers there, works there. And Alex Infinity has curated a playlist for us called Las Comadres, Locals Only, on Spotify. And so you guys can access the music that you guys heard playing in the background or during our musical breaks. Other than that, we also want to thank Valley Views SFE Media, KROJ, Pueblo Salud, and our sponsors, Superior Carco, Maria's Tamales, previously known as Maria's Tamales, La Mariposa Mexican food, and also Prime One Design. This show today, you guys were hearing the voices of Diosi, Teodora, Comadre Maria,
Daniel Molina,
Zacarias Bernal.
and this is us logging off. Catch you guys tomorrow with my Comadre Maria, y'all.
7 to 9
p.m. Bye.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you, Mike.